Hey everybody, and welcome to the BlackLITE podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Sheldon. Today, we're doing the second installment in our Spotlight series. This was a fun one. I've known Julian for 15 years, and this was the first time I got to sit down and interview him one-on-one. And trust me, I did not hold back. We hope you enjoy hearing Julian's story from a fresh, finesse perspective. Now let's get into it. My man, Julian. Dude, first and foremost, man, it's good to see you, bro.
Yo, likewise, man. I'm smiling. I think it's because I'm afraid right now of what you're going to be asking me.
Oh, well, you should be.
Yeah, okay. Just so I know that my actions are justified. So
hey, that's what the Spotlight episode is all about.
Sounds good, man.
So, man, I'm glad that you're here. One, just the fact that as a group, we haven't really been able to connect, like to see each other in the same physical space. So just being in the same space, feeling really blessed to be able to do that. And I'm excited, man. I think that our listeners, many of them already know you, but I think that the ones who don't, and even the ones that do, will be excited to hear some of the questions that we asked today and just to hear some of the answers. So I'm looking forward to getting right into it, man. I can tell that you're a little nervous. Just to let you know, man, this is a semi-safe space. So I think that no question is off limits, but I'm going to try to go somewhat easy on you, but we'll see what happens.
Hey, blessings and gratitude ahead of time.
It's just, I just think about it. It's just you, me, and maybe 1,000 other people probably listening at this point. So let's start with some of the easy stuff, man. All right. Where did you grow up, man? Where'd you come up? What was that like for you? Just kind of when people ask, where'd you come from? What was it like growing up for you? Talk about that for a second.
So I was born in DC, District of Columbia, Chocolate City, 3 stars, 2 bars. You know how it goes. I grew up in Bethesda. So for people outside of the Montgomery County or the DMV area, Bethesda is one of the more affluent areas in Montgomery County, if not the country. And so I grew up in Bethesda. It was interesting because, being a darker face in a sea of white faces is, it's something that's, that you're different, right? So when you grow up and you look around and you see that maybe your hair is a little bit different texture, you see that maybe your parents' social circle is a little bit different. You hear the vernacular that they use is a little bit different than the ones you're growing around. Something clicks and you know what? I feel that I fit in, but I feel that I also don't fit in. So that was something for me that it's taken years and maybe even still in a lot of ways hasn't sunk in. But that was an interesting experience growing up for me. So.
It's interesting that you say that because when you talk about not fitting in, because as long as I've known you, and it's been probably 15 years now, something like that. It's hard to
right.
Hard to think about it in that regard. But as long as I've known you, you've always seemed to fit in. Not to counteract what you're saying, I'm just thinking about you probably one of the most popular people that I know.
Oh man!
And it really comes from, I think you have a lot of different circles. And you have a way of bringing people together that I have never seen before. I've always kind of been a little jealous and envious of the way that you've been able to do that. Can you tell me a little bit about where that comes from and what that experience has been like?
I think as I've gotten older and especially going into college, one of the things that has resonated with me was just the way of connecting to people. And referencing what I just told you about growing up in a more affluent and certainly a more white area, one of the things that I was able to embrace while going to college is just seeing so many different faces and cultures. And so maybe it's even a little bit selfish, but in me wanting to actually become a part of that and to learn more about that, I think there was some kind of feeling that I had inside me knowing that people have a lot more in common than they do different. And being able to have this diverse set of friends and even a diverse environment is something that I've always embraced. What's the saying? Variety is a spice of life. So being able to spend time with other people and see the circumstances and the situations and the background that they come from has been something that I've really grown from. And to be able to have that group together, to me, has been really important. And that's something I took right into, meeting you. And it's been something that I've always wanted to continue. So.
Yeah, man. Well, it's something that you're really good at, and I think that it's more than just a gift. It is also a skill, something that you work on regularly, just bringing people together. It's great to be able to network, but also just able to create real connections. And I think that you just have a way of doing that. I would venture to say that most people in your life would probably call you a good friend. And that's because you're a genuine person and you genuinely care about bringing people together and showing empathy for their needs. And that's rare. And I would definitely say that that has helped to grow our friendship in a way that, not a lot of people get to see. And speaking of just growing our friendship, we'll talk a little bit about our college antics at some point here. I'm sure you're looking forward to getting into that, but let's talk a little bit. We'll fast forward for a second. So you don't talk a lot about work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of our listeners would be really curious to know. I know on one of our episodes, you kind of went into that a little bit more on Black therapy, but just tell us a little bit about kind of what you do, what it means to you, how much work is part of your personal life and who you are. Just talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of work, so I am a child welfare social worker. I work with foster kids preparing to emancipate or age out of the foster care system. It means a lot to me, and I think it's because that age group is something that I at least like to think that I'm not so far removed from. And I think to a certain extent, I feel like they're at the age, so we're talking like 15 to 20, right? At that age, you can actually reason with them. And so when you talk to them and remind them of the decisions that they're preparing to make in their lives, you really see that they have that sense of urgency, or at least they have the capacity to have that sense of urgency. And for me, that is something that's really important to me. And I think it's because one of the things in a lot of ways I've always wanted to do, I've always been fascinated with the aspect of coaching, whether it be a sport, whether it be coaching, I guess not motivational. I don't know what the phrase is, but coaching in terms of the aspect of empowerment that it gives. And that to me is something that's really important. I do genuinely feel that, especially in the circle of friends that we have and that we share, that if somebody is successful, I feel a personal success in that. If you say that you got a promotion, or you say, hey man, I'm moving to another spot or something like that, I feel happy because I know that means that's something that in a lot of ways it fulfills people. And I also know it's the result of them feeling or being empowered to do something. And it's not always easy for somebody to just get up and move, right? So taking it back to the perspective of my job, I think that's why I like that particular age group in terms of what I do. Now, a lot of what I do is crisis based. It's not really a lot of things that are in our control, because there are very many what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of things that really go into why it's crisis based. It's not like a cookie cutter job. And I appreciate that you're always in a position to learn, and no day is the same, right? So if you get a call saying, hey, I need this, or something happened, it's something that it really does build tough skin. And so, that's what I like about it. So, it has its challenging days, it has its rewarding days, and there are aspects of it that are thankless, but at the end of the day, it's something that I'm happy to be doing. So.
Yeah, man, you talked a little bit about, or you used an example and said that if one of your friends or something were to move somewhere, like maybe they move into a new spot and you would be excited for them. If you could live anywhere, you live in Maryland now, but if you could live anywhere else, like if you could choose somewhere else, where would you live and why?
We're talking pre-COVID?
Ooh, fair. Let's say the sky's no limit, or the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. It's your choice.
Right. You know, I would honestly,
which Latin American country isn't going to be.
No, actually, you know what? I would live somewhere in Europe. I went to, oh my goodness, man.
I am shocked.
Yeah, no, yeah, right. Europe to me, and so just to kind of back up, I went to Europe for the first time maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. And being in Europe and just the way of life, the way that people handle themselves in a lot of ways is very carefree. I love that. I love that. You know, I've gone to 3 different European countries, and each of them, I remember saying, I was like, I could probably give it a shot to live here. And I don't know. I mean, the most recent one I went to was London. So living in London, you know, in England would be pretty dope. Pretty dope. But you know what? Spain.
I had a feeling you might say Spain.
What? Spain, yeah. I mean, I don't know, Barcelona, Madrid. Oh man. Yeah, I'm just cheesing thinking about it right now. I don't know. But Europe would be the very top of my list.
Well, I can only imagine the planning that would go into that. And speaking of planning, I would say that you're probably one of the most administrative people that I know. Yeah. As a matter of fact, for those of you who are listening and those of you who don't know Julian as well, just to hang out with him, you have to schedule it in advance, have a Google Calendar invite with an accept, not a maybe, not a no, and with a coordinated date and time, or else it's not going to happen. So I've always been curious. I mean, it definitely helps to keep me on task, even if it's just meeting up. It definitely has helped us to keep on task for some of the podcast production. But I'm curious, where does that come from? Just that the need to have control over that time and space. Really, who hurt you?
Long story short, I hurt me. Yeah.
Go on.
One of the things I hate is missed opportunities. And I find that I'm going to give a saying here, but failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And so if your goal is to spend time with somebody, especially somebody that you enjoy spending time with, and you feel that they grow you, being able to spend time with that person or those people, to me, it's really important to make that a priority. And to know that my negligence of being able to spend that time with somebody that you care about, and knowing that like tomorrow is never promised, you know, so I do what I can to make sure that happens. And whether it means a Google Calendar or anything, or just, you know, following up with people, say, hey, are we good to still spend time together? And I think actually it's actually my tendency to plan like this is actually reinforced by something I learned from you and Warren.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah, okay. Man. The whole concept of your time being important to you. And one of the things, there's lots of things that we do every day, at least I've found. Okay, I'm not going to start preaching or whatever, but lots of things that we do on the day to day that are not in our control. But what we can control is we can't even really control how we spend our time, but we can make an effort at it, right? Right. You know, a perfect example is today, right? Like, you know, we hope to do this a little bit earlier than we did, but certain things that were out of my control happened, and I'm once again happy to be here. But man, to miss an opportunity to spend time with somebody that you enjoy spending time with, and especially with, like, you never know what's going on with COVID. You never know what's going on. Somebody you talk to, oh yeah, I'll hang out with them another time. Come to find out, hey, I got this job offer, and I got to start next week, and it's all the way across the country. You know, that's time you're not going to get back. So long story short, that has happened to me before. So I hurt me, but it seemed to work out.
Yeah, I totally get that, man. I mean, it surprised me a little bit for you to say that you learned that from me and from Warren, but now when you put it in that context, I totally get that. That's definitely been something that I've had to work through as well. And it was actually more to do with the fact that not everybody is going to value my time.
Right.
And just working through that and learning and understanding that you may have people in your life who like you, but they have no concept of what the value of your time or their time actually is. And so now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, our friendship has actually probably been stronger because of your administrative tendencies.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll actually just add on to that too, man. Over the years, we certainly build ourselves up, and certainly our concept of self-esteem. And one of the ways I've had to think of it, because there have been times where people, let's say I'm meeting somebody, I guess in a dating capacity, and are planning to spend time with them, and you make plans to spend time with them, and I think we've all, for all intents and purposes, we've experienced them not valuing your time. And there was a time, probably when I started college, to where I would pursue a woman, and I'm like, hey, I would build up the courage to ask them to spend some time together, whether it be a date, whether it be whatever. And then when it comes down to it, like, oh, I forgot, or oh, something else came up, or and I would just be like, oh no, that's cool, we'll just hang out another time, But eventually it came to the point where I was like, man, I mean, that sucks. And not to sound cocky, but this is what I had to tell myself, is that, okay, well, this person doesn't get to spend time with me anymore, and I'm not a cocky person, but I've had to tell myself, because I've gotten walked on, I've gotten walked over, and nobody likes that feeling, so yeah, that's my little tangent. I don't know if you get a transition.
I can feel the memories coming back to you now.
Yeah, I got my Arthur fist under the table, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And when people don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, and when they're just not listening, and they're not in tune with how important it is to be able to keep your word and things like that, it can really derail a relationship or a friendship. But speaking of people or not listening, let's switch to something else about listening. Let's talk about music for a second.
Okay.
So I've always known you to be into music, into a number of genres, a new genre.
Yeah.
A little inside joke there. But what are you listening to right now, or what have you been listening to recently that you're really vibing with?
Yeah, so I mean, I know I'm going to get some hate for saying this, and certainly from one of our cast members, but definitely the new Logic that came out, and that's not just because he's from Gaithersburg, or because he reps Gaithersburg, but I've really grown within his past few albums. Really, I've grown to appreciate his music more, and I think it's just because as somebody who enjoys hip hop music, it's I've really loved the way that he performs. I love the content of his music, and so he's tended to be a little bit more on the pop side. I guess some of his more like popular radio hits, but Logic just dropped a new album. I've been feeling that. Over the years, I mean, I just kind of piecemeal. I really just kind of piecemeal whatever it is together. R&B, I can't hate on Chris Brown. It seems like he always stays relevant, and I can appreciate an artist that always stays relevant.
He definitely knows how to stay in the news. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, but right now, I mean, that's just what I've been listening to, the new Logic, and whatever gets me through the day,
Hey, I feel you. Now, what's your go-to for music? Is there a particular genre? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to talk about it.
Yeah, it's most definitely gonna be hip hop.
Okay.
Yeah.
A specific era of hip hop?
Yeah, we're talking like 90s hip hop, and I tell you, and I was actually thinking about this a little bit earlier, in terms of albums that really built your love on a genre. I obviously take it back to the Nas, Illmatic, Big Pun. Obviously Biggie, obviously Tupac. We go to them. Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Common. Obviously more mainstream. but you talk about some of the lesser known, unless you're really into it. You talk about lyricism. That's the part that I love the most about hip hop. It's just the lyricism. And so, I mean, you think about cats like Big L, right? And I think you can sit in the car with somebody who never listened to hip hop, and I would probably put on a Big L, a few Big L tracks for them and say, just listen, you know what I mean? Because it's such a art. I mean, people give hip hop such a bad rap, I guess, if I can use a pun. People give hip hop such a bad rap, but they fail to realize, I guess, the reason why it started is talking about really kind of expressing yourself, and even as just a narrative of the things that are going on. And you're talking about the late 70s, early 80s, and so it's not what it is today. And I'm not a big fan of what it's evolved into today, but man, I'm telling you, I mean, I just think about that stuff and I get goosebumps thinking about it. And yeah, so hip hop all the way for me. Yeah.
Well, you know what I get goosebumps about? When I think about the time that you, me, and Warren, we took a road trip up to Toronto and we dropped a karaoke LP in the middle of a blizzard.
Yeah.
But I want you to tell that story from your perspective and let our listeners know what that evening was like.
Man, so first of all, the city of Toronto, I got to pronounce it right.
Got to do it.
I've never had a bad time in that city.
Ever.
But I've never had a better time in that city than with you guys, man. It was tremendous. And I really feel that I stepped out of the box. I really stepped out of the box that weekend. And it was just a weekend away from everything. And it just so happened to be cold as hell. And man, I mean, we went out, we enjoyed ourselves, bars, meeting people, everything. But that one night, I think it was a Sunday night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was a Sunday night, and Warren was like, "Yo, I know this karaoke spot." I mean, of course, Warren knows karaoke spots, right?
He's the karaoke guy.
And he says, "Okay, now," as we're driving up there, he's like, "All right, now normally this place is packed." So we get up there, and once again, it's snowing. Snow is coming down, and Warren is driving like a champ as he does normally. And we get there, we walk in. And we can probably count on our hands, on our fingers, the amount of people in there. Couldn't have been more than seven or eight at the time.
There was nobody in that bar.
There was definitely nobody in that spot. We go in there, and was it like a book that they had where we could just pick the songs?
A songbook, yeah.
And yeah, there was a sign or something either in the book or on the wall, and it said like "No Bohemian Rhapsody." So I'm like, damn, right? And now, mind you, I had never done karaoke like that. Right. If I do karaoke, it'd be something just chill. And I don't even think I've done karaoke, period.
Well, you could have fooled me that night.
Oh, my goodness. So I was like, look, and part of the male ego sometimes, like, no, I don't want to go up there, man. I don't need to be singing in front of all these people. Nah.
All these people who aren't there.
Yeah. But even still. So I grabbed the book and I was like, look, we're going to do it. I'm never going to see any of these people ever again except for you two. We get up there and I'm like, pick a song. I give it to the DJ. Say, here goes nothing, man. And all of a sudden, man, I just belted out. This is how we do it, right? And
I remember it so fondly, man. It was incredible.
There's video somewhere of this. I don't know. It's online somewhere, but man. So I ended up dropping like a whole EP that night, man, like 5 or 6 tracks. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the night, we drop No Diggity acapella.
Yes, sir.
Fun times, man. And I look back on it. I actually never really thanked you guys, man, because I opened up that night. It showed me that, I don't know, just in a weird sense, it just showed me that it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be yourself. And something tells me that just in that moment and in that period in my life, that was just what I needed to hear. Mm-hmm. It's okay to go out. It's okay to take chances on things, whether it be meeting people, whether it be singing, but take that chance, you know. And I feel like it was almost like I mean, I think you guys had planned it, but my involvement was in it was impromptu. It was just like, hey, Jay, we're going up to Toronto.
Yeah.
You want to go? I was like, nah, man, I think I'm
You made the right call. You definitely made the right decision.
Oh, no regrets. No regrets.
Yep.
Just stories.
But, definitely, man. Yeah, that was a great time, and that was a great trip. The funny thing about that, now that you're retelling the story, is I distinctly remember it being what I assumed was your confidence to go up and sing song after song that actually gave me that confidence.
Oh, yeah?
To do that, because I would have gladly gone up and done one song that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
But then it was like, well, there's nobody here, and so we'll just keep putting our name on the list. Yeah. And by the end of the evening, we had all turned in at least 5 songs.
Oh, man.
But by the end of the evening, the bar was completely packed.
Yeah.
So we started early. We're doing 15 songs throughout the night. We've got a solid set going on. Yeah. And then to close out the night with Warren singing Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud.
Yep.
So many people were dancing and just falling in love with each other and just
and it's snowing outside
and excited. We're in the middle of a blizzard in Canada. And I just remember Warren being tucked away in the corner with the microphone, singing beautifully the way he always does, and just bringing down the entire house. Yep. And I'm looking at him, I'm looking at you, and I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah. This is so much fun. Like, we're running this right now.
Right.
God.
Just three brothers from the DMV, man.
That was so much fun, man. That was good times.
Great times, man. Great times.
All right. So switching subjects just a little bit here. I've known you for, again, about 15 years, and I've gotten to know some of the people who are close to you. I'm curious, and I'm sure a number of our listeners are curious. What is your relationship like with your mother? And here's the caveat. How would she describe you as a son?
Like a lot of relationships that we have in our lives, there are certainly ebbs and flows, and there are, I guess, evolutions. The relationship with my mother, I think it's strong in some ways, and in other ways, it certainly needs improvement. I absolutely appreciate the nurturing aspect of it. I would hope that we could be in a position to navigate some of the difficult periods in our lives together. And, I think just being able to have that outlet to talk to somebody, whether it be a therapist or whether it be us talking to each other, but having a real conversation would be something that would strengthen our bond. And saying that to say, in no means do I feel that it's bad, but I think that we strive to make our relationship better and stronger, and sometimes it hasn't necessarily been as easy to define what it means to be stronger, to have a stronger relationship. So, what was the second part of that?
The second part of the question was, how would your mother describe you as a son? Or what words would she use to describe you?
I think she would use the word proud to describe me. Outside of that, I don't know, maybe strong in the sense that maybe she finds some sort of strength in me, or maybe even comforting which is certainly what I would hope to be, but I don't know. I don't know. I've very obviously never been asked that question before. So.
Well, that's why we call this spotlight, man. We put you on the spot for a second here.
Is definitely on me. Yep.
And I think that those are some tough questions when we talk about how do we relate to our parents and how they relate to us. But I think that they are insightful questions and good things for us to think about and for other people to think about as well. So I appreciate you hanging in there with me on that one. Kind of in the same vein here, but just kind of talking about relationships and chemistry and things like that. One of the things that I think that all of us have heard sort of in our personal lives from the feedback on the podcast is actually just how much our listeners enjoy the chemistry of the four of us. Mm. And I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about why you think we have such good chemistry as a group and where that comes from.
You know, I think the reason that we click together so well is one, just the history and the way that we met in a lot of ways is organic. It wasn't like forced. It wasn't like, hey, you know, oh man, I like my boy, he's cool, man. You guys have a lot in common. You guys have to meet. It was never really like that. Now, obviously, knowing Warren and I, we're cousins, so you know, we grew up knowing each other. But spending time with you and like meeting you, once again, that's just another example of a relationship that just evolves over time. You know, the shenanigans back in College Park.
And there were lots.
Oh yeah, there were definitely lots. But, you know, from the Halloween parties, you know what I mean, to the dynasty parties and everything. But, you know, I've appreciated about you is that you've always just like been down, you know what I mean? Like down for the story and, you know, down
for better or worse.
For better or for worse. Yeah. And then, you know, and with Jason, I mean, we met him. Mm-hmm. We just met him at a party. Like, well, I met him before that. But we met him at a party and we just pretty much just.
Oh, I put him to the test immediately. I had to know.
Yeah.
Like, can this guy hang with us or not?
Yeah.
Well, he's still hanging with us.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, so I think we, you know, our chemistry is I don't want to necessarily say unique, but I think it's by design. You know, I think it happened that way. And I think there's a reason that we're all together at this capacity, that we can be able to do these, you know, do something like this, like a podcast, is because we have look, with Jason, I'll go back and forth about the smallest things, as you guys know, you know, whether it be sports, whether it be music, whether it be whatever. You know, at the end of the day, though, man, I consider him a brother, you know, just like I consider you guys brothers, man. And you know, out of everybody, I would say I probably have the most contentious relationship with him of the four of us.
That's also by design.
Yeah, exactly. But I wouldn't have it any other way, man. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing this with another group than you guys, man.
Well, speaking of doing podcasts with other groups, this is actually not your first foray into podcasting.
Right.
And you actually had another podcast previously, which was The Beautiful Trainwreck. If you all have not listened to it, please check it out.
Yes.
Do you remember exactly how many episodes you guys produced?
58, something like that.
That's impressive. That is impressive. Yeah. Most podcasts don't make it out of somewhere between their 10th and their 13th episode.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, man. I'm curious. I mean, one, I think that we have great chemistry on the podcast, exactly what you're talking about in terms of just our genuine friendship, our genuine care and love for each other as friends and brothers. But what are some lessons that you've learned along the way, just from your previous endeavors within podcasting, but then also what you've learned so far just with our group? Things like make sure to hit record.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, even just talking a little bit about the Beautiful Trainwreck is it's something I look back fondly on. You know, it's a podcast between myself and Sarah, who, I mean, everybody in the group knows and is cool with. And it's been cool because I feel like in a lot of ways we talked about how things start organically, but I think that was a podcast that started organically. And I think what set it aside from other podcasts and other content was the fact that you have, you know, a man and a woman talking primarily about sports, but also pop culture, talk about, you know, social issues, just run the whole gamut. But in just like a clown around type of, friendly way. And so that was something that was like, this is not something, I think this is something that is unique. And luckily Sarah's been on board, and it's been really cool to really take that journey. And I've learned a lot just in terms of what goes into creating a podcast. And I think part of those lessons is one of the things that you and I were actually talking about before is consistency. Mm-hmm. Being consistent can make or break a podcast. And when you take that time to meet and also show prep and and go through that whole process, then you tend to figure things out. And so that's certainly a lot of things. I think one of the most important things that I've learned is that the whole process of putting together a podcast, and I don't mean just the recording part, but I mean also the production part, the editing part, to me has been extremely therapeutic. This, sitting down and being able to edit a podcast has been what I do to escape. It's escapism for me. Mm-hmm. They sit down, not really have to worry about how hard your day was, not worry about what might be going on with your family, might not worry about, some of the drama that you might have with, certain groups of friends or whatever. Not to say that happens. I'm just, but it's really given me that time to where I'm able to do it. And I feel most grateful. I feel most grateful to be able to be doing this. I feel most grateful to be next to my fiance, doing it. And I feel the enormous sense of comfort. And that is something that really I've learned about the podcast. And it's one of the biggest lessons for me. Not saying everybody's going to have the same, get the same feeling, but yeah.
Yeah, man, I can say personally that I've felt an overwhelming sense of pride, and just it's been so exciting to produce something and to distribute it, to put our voices out there, which can be terrifying for sure, right. Especially when we're thinking about our jobs or our social lives or relationships and other things like that. It can be difficult and nerve-wracking when you're called on to say something eloquent and that's meaningful that a bunch of other people want to listen to. Right. But it has been truly something special to have the four of us come together and be able to create something that does that. And I know that it has been therapeutic, and it's been helpful for me as well. So it's really cool to see just the different takes from everybody and what the podcast has done for us. And then it's even more exciting to get that feedback from our listeners. And when we hear that people have been listening to us like from all over the world, it's like, wow. I mean, when we met for the first time to really talk about what we were trying to do with BlackLITE, I don't know if any of us could have imagined that we would be here at this point. Yeah. And I mean, 2020 has been a hell of a year, I think, for everybody, but this has been a real bright spot, and it's been exciting. And I've been so proud to be able to work on it, even more proud to be able to work on it with you guys. Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. I feel the same way. Absolutely, man.
So we'll start winding down here a little bit. I think I got just a few more questions for you. I want to respect your time.
Appreciate you.
So we're talking about chemistry on the podcast and how all that's been going. And I'm curious though, and I'm sure that our listeners are curious, what are maybe like one thing that maybe most people might not know about you outside of work or social life or even the podcast? So maybe like a hobby that you might be into, or an interest that maybe doesn't get a lot of airtime, something like that.
Right. It's funny because outside the podcast, people ask me this question and use the podcast as like, hey, I'm a part of 2 podcasts, I guess. But so outside of that, and maybe this is, I know we had our blurred episode, but I actually have several collections. So I have an action figure collection, I guess kind of like the 40-Year-Old Virgin, if you guys have seen that movie. But I have an action figure collection. I have maybe about 200 of them, and they're mainly sports action figures. So kind of like the starting lineup for like old school people, but a little bit different. But it's been a collection that I've amassed for almost 20 years now.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I'm rapidly running out of space because I just don't know when to stop buying. But it goes from, let's see, sports action figures. I got some comic book action figures, Ninja Turtles. Goodness, what else, man? Pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not the only collection I have, right? I just recently started. I'm looking at Sheldon rocking this nice Bayern Munich kit. I started collecting national soccer team jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
And so, wow, I have probably around 80 or 90 different.
Wow.
Yeah, it's something, and this is really a hobby that I've picked up over the past 2 years since the last World Cup in 2018. I've always been fascinated by how each jersey, each kit is different. Mm-hmm. And, they get different kits every year.
Yep.
And I've always just been fascinated by that, and I collect the, the basketball NBA jerseys too. But I've just really been fascinated with soccer kits. So that's something I always keep my eye on. Probably not the best use of funds at the moment, but certainly it's something that's given me something to look forward to and to look back on. So.
Now, where would you say, or how would you say that started? How'd you get into collecting? I mean, I guess each one of those is a little bit different, but where does that come from, or where did you start with that?
So with the action figures, so my first job out of high school was at Toys R Us.
Ah, okay.
So I worked at Toys R Us. I actually picked it up on
And then you were, in fact, a Toys R Us kid?
Yeah, I was definitely a Toys R Us kid. And it's crazy because I have a picture of me when I'm like 5 or 6 years old, and I got a sweatshirt that says I'm a Toys R Us kid. So if that's not, foreshadowing, I don't know what is. But so I holiday employment at Toys R Us. I started working there, met a good friend or two there. And, you go to the, obviously, as most department stores are, you got different departments, and you go to where all the action figures, they call it boys, the boys section. So all the action figures are there, and I see these cool basketball figures. I'm like, yo, these are cool. Mm-hmm. And I see they're like $10. So I'm like, oh, well, I'm making minimum wage, but I guess I could probably swing this.
See, if I work for 3 hours, I can get one of these things.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I pick one up, and then, I'm a sucker for following the rules, man. So I look at the back and it says collect them all. I was like, I guess I gotta collect them all. So
challenge accepted.
Yeah, I did that, and then baseball season came around. I was like, they got baseball figures too. So they had the 4 major sports, baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. And so I just started from there. And I only worked at Toys R Us for 3 years, but after that, I kept going.
That's wild, man. I got to be honest with you. As long as I've known you, I don't think I've ever seen that collection. I think that's one that you keep away from a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I don't, yeah. And it's not on purpose. If I had a room to where I could display them, man, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, before we go here, man, is there anything else that you wanted to say to our listeners? Is there any takeaways, life lessons, something that you wanted to share, like something that's maybe in your heart or something that is timely that you just wanted to get out there and make sure that you get across to our listeners?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, thank you. I want to thank all the listeners and all the people who are watching this or listening to this at whatever medium. But really, the support that we've gotten, just echoing what you were saying, I couldn't imagine that it would be to this point. And I really hope that if there is something that you hear that resonates with you, no matter what it is, I would encourage you, definitely, please just send it out. Let us know. What it is, or something that you found interesting, or something that you want us to talk about, but definitely send it out and let other people know that, hey, this is something I'm listening to right now, and I found it interesting. I think maybe you might find it interesting too. And once again, I mean, a lot of what goes on in our lives goes down to communication. And so this is what I think one of the biggest parts that we have in this is that we're able to communicate our experiences. None of us are experts, but we do know a lot about what we've experienced, right? And so, so I'm just really, grateful and humbled for all the interest and the support that everybody has shown. And I hope that we'll continue, able to put out content to everybody, and sky's the limit, man. I'm looking forward to taking this ride with you guys. So
Yeah, I hear you, man. Well, on a personal note, before we fade out here, man, I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done with the podcast. It's been absolutely incredible.
Thank you,
All of
man.
your input as well. You truly were the person who inspired me to join. And I still remember the evening when we met up for drinks at happy hour and we just talked about podcasting.
Yeah,
And then
man.
right after that, I mean, you sent me a link with everything that I might need to get started in podcasting. So you really were influential there. And you've also just been an influential person and friend, and to me, like a brother in my life. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of those things, and just really, really appreciated that. And I couldn't agree with you more. All of these different examples, reasons, and stories are why our circle is so tight, man. And I can't imagine doing this with anybody else,
Most
man.
definitely,
So
man. Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
yeah, well, I think that's going to do it for us, man. This has been awesome. Thanks for your time, Julian. This has been incredible. And I really hope that our listeners are going to enjoy this and get something out of this. I think that they will. I know that I did, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much, dude.
Awesome.
It's been great.